If there's one thing I know, both in my own life and working with my clients, is that change can be bloody scary. As humans, we often try to maintain the status quo and stick with what we know. I didn't really intentionally mean that to rhyme. That's because we're worried about loss. Now, when it comes to loss, regardless of who you are, retirement is a big part of our lives where we lose certain aspects. Not only can we lose our income, we can also lose our sense of identity and purpose. But what if I told you modern day thinkers and ancient Western and Eastern philosophers all have a particular insight into how to cope with this change? And in this video, I'm going to explain 2 perspectives and 3 actions you should consider taking to live the best retirement you can. Welcome to What Happens Next. So in this video, I want to talk about 1 Stoic philosophy and 1 Taoist philosophy, one from Western background and one from Eastern background, that might help you live the life that you want. Particularly if you're coming up to a change in your life where you're thinking about either retirement or the next chapter in your life. Now, who am I to speak about this sort of stuff? My name's Chris Dames. I'm a chartered financial planner, and for 20 years I've been helping people from a financial aspect make sure they've got the financial assets that are going to help them live worry-free through that next chapter of their lives. But what I've realised, particularly over the last few years, I've been doing hundreds of hours of reading, interviewing experts and thinking about this particular subject, is retirement as a concept, because of the fundamental change to how we've lived our life in the last chapter, can be particularly hard. And what I want to do today is explore some of those concepts that are going to help you think about retirement in a different way and support you to live the life you want in this next chapter. And I want to start with the Stoic principle of amor fati, to love one's fate. You see, the Stoics believed that you had 2 things in your control. Number 1, the actions you could take, but also how you thought about particular change. And actually, amor fati is about making sure that we perceive both good luck and bad luck in a way that allows us to move forward and live our lives more sensibly. Because retirement is often a period of times where we lose things. However, using the opportunity to reframe retirement and embrace its change, the fact that we've got all this extra time we get to have to do what we really want is really important and links back to perceiving that retirement in a different way. Now, on this channel, I talk a lot about what happens next instead of retirement. And I get that retirement is the popular phrase that most people use. But often it's a disempowering phrase. To retire to what? Actually, in this chapter of many of my clients' lives, and certainly yours, there's an opportunity in retirement to actually spend your time doing what you want. We're on a real mission with What Happens Next to help you and people like you plan and prepare for retirement or that next chapter of your life in the most successful way possible. And there's a few things that I'd love to do to help you do that better. Firstly, on the What Happens Next website, you can find at www.whathappensnext.life. We've got a range of free resources that you can get access to today to help you, including our quiz, but also joining the What Happens Next inner circle that allows you to get access to new videos when they immediately come out and sign up for the waiting list for the What Happens Next book. You can find a link to everything we're talking about in the comments, or you can click on this QR code with your phone and it'll send you straight to the What Happens Next website. And also, I'd love to ask a favour. If you've got value out of this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, because that allows us to continue to build our audience and help people plan and prepare for their retirement and what happens next in a better way possible. Thank you. And the Taoist used to say something very similar. There's a story of a Chinese farmer in Taoist philosophy where a Chinese farmer owned a horse. And one day that horse ran away, and all the villagers around this guy's farm said, what terrible luck that this horse has run away. A few days later, the horse came back, and he was followed by 10 wild horses. So the farmer one day owned one horse, and suddenly he owned 11. And the villagers said, what amazing luck. You've actually now got 11 horses instead of the one. Farmer just smiled and said, we'll see. The following day, the farmer's son was riding one of the wild horses and broke his leg. He got kicked off and broke his leg. And all the villagers said, oh, what terrible luck. Your son's been injured. Farmer just smiled and said, we'll see. The following day, the army came. And they were looking for young men to fight in a war. And the farmer's son couldn't fight because of his broken leg. So they didn't take him. And at that point, the villagers said, how lucky for your son. And the farmer just smiled for the last time and said, we'll see. And we all make judgments about certain things that happen in both our and other people's lives. We perceive certain events, including retirement or redundancy or change, as good or bad. The reality is both the Stoics and the Taoists used to talk about accepting what is and looking at the positive action we can take towards the goals we want to achieve in our life. Because the reality is, the events we can't control often. What we can control is both our attitude and action towards those events. By passing judgment too early, we might find ourselves stuck. Stuck with a perspective about retirement or what happens next in our life that doesn't serve us. Stuck with a point of view that doesn't help us. And stuck in a rut we can't get out of because whatever we try, because of our perspective often, doesn't work. Now, I haven't got the answers for this one, but there's a few things that I want to share, 3 actually, that might benefit you when you're thinking about what happens next, particularly if you feel stuck in a bit of a rut. Number 1 is ask yourself George Kinder's 3 questions. Now, I believe there's a bunch of useful questions we can ask ourselves when we're thinking about our next chapter of our lives. And I think 3 of the most powerful were coined by an amazing gentleman, an American financial planner and life planner called George Kinder. Now, I have recorded an interview with George. It's about an hour long. That's super insightful and will give you definite insights into thinking about your retirement and what happens next in a different way. But he's got 3 questions that he asks that can help you find the next stage in your life in a way that works for you. First one is, imagine today you're financially secure. You've got enough money in the world to take care of all of your needs today and all of your needs in the future. How would you live your life? What would you change? Don't hold back on that vision of your future. Describe that life like it's richly yours. That's question 1. And it's designed to help you imagine your ideal life without any financial worries. The next question involves a visit to a doctor who says that you've got 7 years to live. And the good part is the 7 years will be lived in perfect health. You won't have any health issues at all, but you will pass away in 7 years' time. What are you doing with that time? Will you change your life in terms of what you do, and how will you do it? And the idea of that question is to really focus on what you want to do with a finite amount of time left. We all know that we've got a finite amount of time. And often when we're thinking about our future, it feels like we've got all the time in the world. My clients who are older tell me that time goes quick. So asking you that finite question and saying, if you knew you had limited time, what would you do with it, is really important. Next, imagine that the doctor phoned you back up and says, I've made a big mistake actually. It's not 7 years left. You're going to die tomorrow. What would you regret? What would you wish you'd finished or done and been? This question is about thinking about what you'd regret if you knew the end was imminent. And that might highlight the actions you might want to take sooner rather than later. The challenge we've got, and this comes to the action you can take as my number 2, is finding the time and headspace to work out the answers to these questions, because they're not easy questions to ask yourself. And finding a route to make sure that you can do it is a really important thing to do. And that's why my tip number 2 is to journal. Now, I've talked in previous videos about the power of journaling. I find it a really cathartic thing to do, but also a real insight into what I truly believe about a particular subject. The weird thing I find about journaling is that I'm brutally honest with myself at times when I journal. And that honesty allows me to have real insights about what I want so I can make really important decisions about my own life. The third action you should consider taking, and this is from my favourite TED Talk and one of my favourite books on navigating change, Design Your Life by Bill Burnett, is incremental improvement. There's loads of academic research that talks about the positive power of lifelong learning and positive incremental change. From the research on growth mindset and the incredible science behind neuroplasticity, we know that incremental improvement and constant learning throughout our lives is a thing that makes us happier and healthier. The reality is that when we make knee-jerk decisions in our life, instead of learning from the Chinese farmer or the Stoic philosophy of embracing fate, whatever happens, it negatively impacts our happiness. Instead of this fixed mindset approach, having a growth mindset and a curious perspective on the world leans into lifelong learning and will help you lead that happier, healthier life that I imagine you definitely want in this next chapter. So the Stoics and the Taoists agreed. Embracing our fate, good and bad, and living a life where we focus on our attitude to the world, but also what we can control, both in the highlights and the lowlights of our lives, allows us to navigate those changes more successfully. What it also allows us to do is make positive incremental change in all areas of our well-being, including our work, our health, and our money. Now, I talked about the interview I did with George, and you can find that right here. And in this video, I talk about the Stoic philosophies you can learn from that's going to benefit your what happens next or retirement today. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the channel soon.